my father-in-law gets up, John, my father-in-law will get up and he'll warm up yesterday. And I'm like, man, I got higher standards than that work on. Yeah, they'll sink it.
Well, John, I'm trying to get it up here on Monday.
Okay, I'm going to call the workshop to order. Let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance, and this meeting has been duly called. Notice that the meeting has been duly posted for time and manner required by law. No need for a closed session this evening, so we're going to go right into our open forum. We've got 4 individuals signed up to speak. First speaker will be Matt Altier. Mr. Altier, you know the drill. State your name and address for the record, please. If you have 5 minutes to speak, I'll let you know when you have approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Perfect. Thank you, Board, again, for allowing the community to speak into this process a little bit. I was thinking about after y'all's last workshop, you know, I was a part of the LRPC and a part of the same election that the last high school bond passed. And I felt some guilt over that time of, did we build it too small? Did we put all that we should have done, would have, could have, should have done on that facility? As a board member, feeling that guilt. And I know there's some of that same stuff that you guys are dealing with, like, are we doing the right things? Are we doing enough for what could happen as far as growth goes? And I just kind of find peace in that. Hindsight, crystal clear, right? I mean, there's a lot of things we would have done differently. Point of it is that building, $118 million versus the cost of what y'all are looking at for a high school building today. And so I went and looked at those same schools. Some of y'all were on the same tour that I was on when we were on the board at that time. When we went to Eaton and Northwest ISD and several schools in Frisco ISD to look at these campuses and walk those buildings, all of those districts since then have gone back and done something to retrofit what they missed or what happened because of the growth. They're all districts like ours. They're all districts that experienced exponential growth above and beyond, sometimes double what the demographers projected. That is not our fault. And I think a lot of times as board members, we feel like that's our fault, that we might have missed something. And so I looked at Northwest ISD, Frisco ISD, when it came to what they've had to do to those buildings to accommodate the student growth that they've had, are the things that y'all are talking about. And so I don't want you guys to feel guilty for doing what's right for kids. This is not a luxury item. This is about student safety. It's about getting kids on a building and not putting them on a bus to go do an extracurricular activity. And so just kind of remember that as you're thinking about, whether we do this or whether we not put in, you're going to build a facility that has these things where kids are not required to leave if this bond passes in a new high school. And so doing what's right for 3,200, 3,300 kids, however many are over there right now, is not a bad thing. So don't feel guilt about that. I think the community understands the safety and security aspect of it, and you can visually see that with every other school district that's in the same spot a couple of years ago that have made that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Nichols? Will you state your name and address for the record, please? You will have up to 5 minutes to speak. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute remaining and when you have 30 seconds remaining.
All right. Thanks, sir. Nathan Nichols, 137 Spring Grove Drive, here in Waxahachie. So, thank you guys again for doing everything. Again, like Mr. Hoppy had said, allowing the community to have a little bit of a voice and what we feel is, what we think is right for these kids and for the school district as we grow forward. Me personally, just a little bit of history of myself. I know a lot of you guys do know me, some of you don't. I'm from Memphis. I'm not even from Waxahachie. But I got here as quick as I could. And my kids, I do not have a football player. I do have a student athlete that's a son. He's a senior in the baseball program, and a daughter that played volleyball and softball this year. So I see the importance of athletics in these kids' lives. I see the importance of these coaches and what they do for these kids. And it's very important. Athletics as a whole is very important to keep kids in school, to keep them excited about something. I feel like we do personally quite a bit for the school district. I see the construction side, the CTE program and how great that is, and having those kids there and performing on that side. And I also see the athletic side of things and how important that is in keeping kids that are economically challenged, that struggle to be in school and stay in school and have the support. And when you have these programs like this that keep these kids engaged and involved, it's very, very important. So I see being a little bit of part of the football program and the athletic program, the construction program, the importance of keeping these kids on campus. I unfortunately was around and had to attend a funeral of a student athlete. And I want to do everything in my power as a community member to make sure I don't have to do that again. And my son or daughter doesn't have to do that again. And that right there, there's nothing wrong, like Mr. Otley said, there's nothing wrong with going back and doing things that need to be done for our community and for our student athletes for the program to keep them on campus. And it's super important to do that. It's super important to me. So thank you guys again.
Thank you. Katie Warsing?
Hey y'all, I'm Katie Worsing, 139 Lakeshore, I'm sorry,
You're good.
old address,
You're good.
313 Lakeshore Drive. That's where I'm at now. I don't have a whole lot to add to what I said on Monday night, but a couple of things have come to mind since then. And I know that a weight room and may seem a little bit trivial for all the things that we have that are available, just not at the high school location. But I personally know a senior right now who had multiple D1 offers that goes to Waxahachie. And I am friends with his mom, and she told me that he chose a college over one thing. All of the scholarships were pretty much equal. They were all full rides. All the academic programs that they had to offer were on his, path to where he wanted to be in life. He chose it over the weight room. That was the one thing that got that kid motivated to go to that one college, was the state-of-the-art weight room. And so it makes a difference. And I told y'all before that we, born and raised here, kids are 5th generation from here. But again, when we moved back, it would have been a whole lot easier and a heck of a lot cheaper to move to Corsicana, where my husband works, or to Ennis. I mean, we would literally be paying half of the amount for the same house. And our property taxes would be lower. And like multiple people have said, we live here, we chose here because this is home. And when I think about all of the other people that I have heard coming from specifically California, that's why they chose Waxahachie, is because it feels like home. You know, a lot of kids do use athletics as a springboard to get a higher education. So if we can't offer them the resources they need at a reasonable place, then that's just a hindrance to them. Also, as a parent, I want to know that my athletic kids, I have 3 very athletically gifted kids, and I want to know that they have a great chance to take advantage of and be successful in a school this big. It's almost unreasonable, dare I say, that we have a program that is this good, that went 3 games deep into the playoffs, and we don't even have what we need on campus. And then you add to the fact, like the other 2 have said, that we don't have any, that the new high school is going to have all of these facilities that WHS is going to be lacking. And it kind of hurts my heart a little bit, if I'm going to be really honest. I know that that is, that's an emotional thing, but I promise you, I've talked to so many other parents on the football that have multiple levels of football players, and we all feel the same way. And the particular player that I mentioned previously about that chose the college over the weight room, he has played for, I know personally, for 3 different districts, and he keeps hopping around, and he landed here. And he landed here on purpose because this is a great program. We moved back here because this is a great program, and we knew that this was going to be the most successful place for our kids in the athletic department. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Caroline Ford? Name and address, please.
Caroline Ford, 319 East Marvin. And thank you all for allowing us to be here tonight to flesh this out and see where we can get with this idea of putting them back on campus and having a facility dedicated to athletics, football, or however it shakes out tonight. So thank you very much for that. And also, I know as we start working on this bond and working on the PAC, there will be pushback that this is an education, that it's athletics. But I hope we all remember that sometimes this is only how kids can be successful. There's one kid on the team right now that just received a scholarship, and he doesn't have a home life, mother, father, and this is the only way he is going to college and furthering his education. And hopefully maybe he'll come back one day and work in our schools, be on our school board, or somehow serve this community. And I can attest to my own son, being in athletics kept him motivated in Algebra 2 this year. And also, it keeps them out of trouble. I have taught school when I first got out of college, and I could call that coach and say, hey, I'm having problems with this student. He was no longer a problem in my classroom. So it keeps kids motivated in the classroom, in education, keeps them out of trouble, keeps them from being idle after school. So this is a big part of their education, and going forward, I hope you all and our community remembers this as we are voting for this bond package. So thank you all very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, that will conclude our open forum. We're moving on to workshop work, bond preparation. Dr. Hollingsworth, this is all you.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. All right, I want to talk to you about our discussion points for today. We want to revisit possibility for bond propositions and how we might structure something moving forward to include conversations surrounding the athletic facilities at Waxahachie High School. And we'll also talk about potential funds for athletics and how we can do that. And you're going to hear from, you'll hear from Jonathan Alves, our architect, who has done quite a lot of work in a really short period of time. So I want to begin just by saying thank you, Jonathan, for really working hard in a short turnaround. And then we obviously want to hear from y'all. So here is kind of where we landed last time we were here in terms of bond propositions, and these are the things, Mr. President, that we took away as we had landed the plane on an agreement on A, B, and C. And you see how those are laid out up there on the screen with neighborhood. I'll just say it since we have people watching at home. Educational facilities would be Proposition A, potentially with Neighborhood Elementary number 10, a new Wyoming STEAM Academy, Neighborhood Elementary number 11, and then expansions to Hancock, to Findlay, and to Howard. And Hancock, of course, becoming the home of Coleman Junior High long-term. B would be Comprehensive High School number 2, and then those facility upgrades at C. I'm going to now hand it over to Jonathan. And Jonathan, if you don't mind standing in the same spot where our speakers were, sir, right over there by Ryan and his cameraman. And there you go, you can drive right there. Very good.
So Dr. Hollingsworth, you may have to fill in the blanks on who all we visited with. That was yesterday, right?
Absolutely. So yesterday, in my office, we had present, we had Dr. Averett, we had Mrs. Harris, principal from the high school, we had Greg Reed, our athletic director, we had Coach Tollison, we asked June Villers to come, so to make sure that we had a balanced perspective between our male programs and our female programs. We also had Ryan Calden present. Our architect, obviously, Jonathan, was present in that meeting as well. Who am I missing? Anybody? Greg, yeah, Greg, I think I got everybody. All right, and I was there. And we spent a better part of about 3 hours to make sure that we were capturing all the things that are, hey, what do we have already at WHS? What is missing at WHS? What's missing at WHS from Coach Tollison's perspective for the boys athletic program? Turn immediately, Coach Villers, what's missing? You know, she's coming in new, she's got a fresh set of eyes over the last year. What's missing in terms of, from the girls' perspective, so that we don't fix something and have an existing problem still remaining. The idea is, let's fix it. Let's fix it once and for all to move forward, and something we can feel proud of. So.
And that's a great recap and a segue to why that was about a 3-hour meeting, because it wasn't just about bringing football back. It was about how do we address absolutely everything while we're at it. And so the areas to recap quickly for you that we talked about, and we pretty much talked about most areas in here, but I've highlighted them for you, starting at the top. Existing space for dance and cheer. If you don't know, dance and cheer originally, and I think Mr. Arthier hit on it pretty well, there's what the architect designs, and then when you move in the building, things change. And there's just been a lot of change, especially in athletic programs. So originally it was intended for dance and cheer to share the same locker room space and the same rehearsal space. I don't call it a dance hall, but it's a dance hall that's adjacent to it. That hasn't worked out so well, and so one issue that came up was cheer really needs to have that rehearsal space, and I think that pretty much they're not in that locker room space either because the space is just too tight for both programs. So that's a known issue that everybody has. Additionally, the 3 that I've highlighted in blue here, those are the originally designed as freshman, JV, and so freshmen starting at the freshman, JV, and varsity football locker rooms. And then, shower space, coaches' offices, that sort of thing. Those are still there, but obviously football does not use those. That's actually boys cross country, tennis, and baseball have moved into those spaces now. So it's not that they're not being used. The conversation we had with Coach was, if you were to try and move back in, would they even be an adequate size? And the overwhelming answer was, it's just not enough space for us anyway. So we talked a lot about whether we could renovate to get football back in, but it made more sense, and you'll see in a second the solution for football. But that space still needs to be addressed for the programs that are in there. With some pretty limited renovation work, I think all of those programs already are working well in there. We just need to put up a wall or two and look at potentially even more weight room space, to another speaker's point. And then the image there, of course, is the weight room. It's pretty much a bowling alley style weight room. And it's not even about the proportion, it is about how many teams or athletes you can have in there at one time, is what we heard. While you may get a sport or 2 in there at a time, the scheduling around a high school your size is such that you need to have more athletes in there. That's the real issue. So it's not even about size, it's about ability to get all the kids in there in the timing that you need. So that's a real issue.
Jonathan, excuse me, just to emphasize that piece, y'all, that was one thing, Coach Villers, from her perspective, immediately, she said, weight room, access to weight room is difficult, from girls' perspective and from pretty much all sports perspective. And she said, training ring, it's not an adequate space for any of the sports, on the whole.
Right. And that was the space, if you haven't been in the building recently, the space immediately adjacent is a training room. It's a little snug for a high school training room, we'll just say, looking at it. And it's pretty divided. If you haven't been in there's a lot of rooms even within it, which make it a little difficult to have a lot of students in and have a trainer keep an eye on everything, which is important in a training space. So after all the discussing, these were the issues that we really needed to address first and foremost. Making sure we could accommodate dance and cheer in adequate space, make use of what you already have in those existing football locker rooms, and address your weight room need and your training room need. So we went through, there's really only two real options when you start talking about location for athletics, because this is, of course, the athletic end of the building. So what we have at least schematically put together, and I'll keep saying that word schematically, because it's not a finalized design, it's just kind of a proof of concept after our talk with everybody, is proposing an addition that would be immediately adjacent. This large mass is the IAC. So there's your indoor activity center. The students exit the building right there right now. So that big piece of grass that's between there, essentially that is what this is filled in with, and then we'll talk a little about the small portions of interior renovation. So again, leaving the IAC on there is a scale comparison for you. I'll say it another time. What we've done in this concept in the last 24 hours is essentially captured everything, make sure it fits, and it does fit, but things are going to move. So I don't want people to fall in love with this is exactly where things are. This is just a way to show all the elements that we talked about. So starting here, that is weight room. So if you look at that weight room, it's about twice the size of the current weight room that you have. So proposing a weight room, and all the multi-use, or I should say that the facilities that are open to every student would be off the main hallway. So you extend the main hallway down, this is your back drive along the IAC. So that your weight room, your multi-sport team meeting room, there's always need for teams getting together, not having to book one specific space, and a larger training room, an expanded training room. So since all students would be using those from all sports, the goal would be to have those kind of closest to the main hallway so that no one's going back into the other athletic areas. But it was also important, since we're providing for cheer and for football, that we are not combining cheer and football. So at least schematically for right now, we have cheer set up as a separate circulation path back to their area, where they would have their rehearsal space, their locker rooms, their restrooms, their storage space. And they could even have an ability to load out directly to a sidewalk here that would take you to the drive that goes up behind the dining is right here as well. So if they load out on Friday night, they really could go either way, either here or just straight out back. That would allow us to have kind of a central spine that football would enter. I don't have all my doors in, but I would certainly say there's a door there that now turns into kind of varsity football. Again, it's schematic, but just generally organized around a varsity football, sub-varsity football, coaches' locker rooms and laundry rooms split to the two areas. Field equipment and everything that football needs daily is on the exterior, so you have an overhead cooling door and you can load directly onto the driveway and go. So all in all, that's about 35,000 square feet of space when it's done. Doubling the size of the training, doubling the size of the weight room itself by creating the new weight room, and then providing for a full-size team room that's closer to about 1,700 feet. And this is all to be negotiated as you start to work through it, but for the sake of budgeting, as you guys asked, this is what it's all based upon in terms of budgeting. Going back into the existing building, so that addition I just showed you is sitting right here. What was here, or is here currently, is the existing, what was to be the varsity football locker room, and a really large shower area and a really large coach's office area. So what we've tentatively slated is, baseball, I believe, is using this space now, but this locker room that's up here, we'd like to just simply divide that. So cross country, tennis, and PE has some use of it too, just to allow them to have locked off locker rooms. But you already have a significant investment in restrooms, showers, all of those things in this area. But this large coaches suite honestly isn't highly used because if you have the football coaches out, there's some room to give. So we're thinking at least tentatively to come in and renovate this to another weight room as well. So with limited cost, do an interior renovation to basically clear out a locker room that really isn't being fully utilized right now. The programs that I named, cross country, tennis, and baseball, don't need the space quite as large. Now, baseball does have it's a pretty big squad that's there. So there is some room to give in locker rooms, we think. So this would be something we'd have to talk to and negotiate. So you would end up with a new weight room in the addition, and then a renovated weight room space within the existing building as well. So again, it wasn't just square footage. Remember what even Dr. Hollingsworth said, it's about scheduling. So it's having a variety of spaces that the different sports can be in.
And a clear agreement from Coach Tolson, Coach Villers, that 3 weight rooms gives us the flexibility that we would want among all the sports that are competing.
So with that, if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to address it. But it
Go
fits.
back to that other one, please.
Yes, sir.
Land on.
So across that on it,
Ryan, do you want to talk first?
Current estimate right now for this as an attached space is about $20 million.
So part of when you add on to this building, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, the meetings are running together in my head. Building code has changed since the high school was built, and so this would trigger a storm shelter. So a storm shelter capable of withstanding 225-mile-an-hour winds is what this addition would be built to. Not the whole thing, we don't need the whole square footage. But those costs, you can imagine, are a little more significant cost than even just standard construction costs these days. Because a tornado shelter it's an investment, I'll say that.
So, and 20 is, I know it's a round number, but Jonathan was able to talk to 3 different contractors and get rough guesstimates at a price per square foot. And those ranged anywhere from roughly 16 million to roughly 26 million. And so 20 is kind of just meeting in the middle and saying, hey, here's our best guess. 2 of the 3 quotes were under 20, and then of course one of them was way over 20. So it's just, right now, with schematic concepts, it's just kind of our best guess of what we think it would take.
To include FF&E as well.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And that would be turnkey, FF&E, all the bells, whistles, and fees built in.
and legally, does it have to be its own prop? Do it have to be its own prop?
Yes, sir.
It does.
Yes, sir.
So we already have 6 million in that for Lumpkins, so we're talking 14 additional.
Yes, ma'am. From the original proposal
Yes.
from the LRPC.
Yes.
And if I did some math today, 6 million, this is based on a $600 million bond. I just kind of rounded it off, obviously 1% of it. Just to be a little bit more than double, roughly 2. That's, I mean, if you look at the monthly costs based on those numbers you did, it's like a dime per month for
Yep.
each taxpayer, so it's not much.
Yes, sir.
Are all of the issues, because there were a lot of issues in the locker room and besides the weapon, are all those issues addressed with this?
To the best of our attempt, that's why it took so long yesterday, because we really kind of determined the big needs in about an hour, and then we spent the rest of it going back, and as Dr. H said, we want to make sure we're not causing another problem, we're not solving a problem. And I don't want to quote anybody else, but we looked at, for instance, do we need more coaches' office spaces, for instance, in the existing building? Well, there's some intractable issues in that current building where I could put office spaces, they're nowhere near the athletes. And so there's really nothing you could do that makes sense that I could build you that office, but I'm pretty sure a coach wouldn't move into that office. And that was a lot of the conversation was, what's a reasonable thing to expect with the rest of the issues you have?
I just remembered it was before the football team moved out, there were a lot of issues with like soccer and baseball, and, having enough space for their teams. So do you know if those were ever
I
resolved?
think baseball was able to move into one of the old football locker rooms is one of the things that
Okay,
changed.
see, I don't know
the
that.
rest of
Okay.
I can tell you the cheerleading was never resolved, and this right here would resolve that.
Yeah, it's never been resolved, that's,
Well, because we spend a lot of time, because their space is also at Lumpkins.
huh?
Their space is also at Lumpkins for cheer.
Oh, I didn't realize
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
Okay. There are a lot of things I don't know.
Yeah, I should have said that. They travel just like
There is
football.
a space, we'll just say.
Well, I know they share a space with drill team and there's
No,
not
they
much.
don't.
Oh,
Real
okay.
team has it all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they gave up trying to share a long time ago.
But
Yes.
all of the things, Ms. Kriegel, that you're asking about are the very same questions that we were asking to make sure that we are covering our bases. We're not creating new inequities,
Mhm.
okay, among sports, new inequities from male to female particularly. That's one
Right.
that we wanted to be really sure we were covering well. And that was kind of why we, from Coach Villar's perspective, what's missing? What's
Okay.
missing in what we have and what you're doing on a day-to-day? She immediately said, weight room, training space, those are our biggest issues. And then we kind of dug in further on those. Ryan, I don't know if you'd add anything to that.
No, sir, I mean, you're right, we tried to go activity by activity, what are we not thinking of, what are we not thinking of, what are we not thinking of, and then, you know, that's kind of how the sausage is made, as we're talking one thing, you know, somebody else will go, well, that will create us a problem with this, and so, you know, reimagining, what does that need to look like, and that's kind of where some of this backfill of current spaces came from. Was,
Right.
okay, well, we really, from a scheduling standpoint, would like 3 weight rooms. They don't necessarily, you know, have to be all into one
Right.
enormous weight room, but 3 of them of adequate size would let 3 different activities minimally be in a weight room at the same time, as compared to, well, you take it today and we'll get it tomorrow or next time or whatever it may happen to be. So that's kind of where those conversations led to, well, if we could backfill this locker room into another weight room.
I just know there were a lot of issues at that time, and I never knew if they were resolved, so if this was
It's a
resolved.
little unusual when we agree we can get rid of a locker room to expand a weight room, and that was a big part of the conversation. So we talked through kind of each program to make sure they had the locker room space, and at least what we heard was, we felt like these are the biggest needs and these are the major issues.
I'd like to hear from Ms. Harris. She lives this building every day.
What questions can
Just, how does this look to
I
you?
love it. I mean, I was there for the entire conversation, and Dr. Hollingsworth gave me the opportunity to talk a lot about the different programs that we have utilizing this space. And I feel like we did an excellent job of making sure that every program was served by this plan. And every program will be served well by this plan.
Well, Coach Reed's here. Anybody else? You got any questions for them? You guys have anything you wanna?
Coach,
Wanna add?
anything?
First off, thank you. 2 days ago, there was nothing on there. And
Coach, come up here, Bob.
yeah,
Ryan, please.
first off, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and, number one, have a voice. 2 days ago, there was nothing on this for athletics. And I looked today and I saw a Prop 4 athletic upgrade. So I'm very humbled and thankful for that. And I'm thankful for the parents who came up here and spilled their hearts. I'm thankful for a board and administration that's actually taking a risk on this deal. That's the Waxahachie I remember growing up hating playing against. It really was. Tough freaking people that are willing to take a risk. And I've got my twofold person in this. I'm a dad. I got a kid going to come through this program. So it means a lot to him that he gets that wholesome athletic experience, but academic experience that I know those two will bridge those gaps. I'm the head football coach here, so, but when people think about that, they think, well, he's only going to care about football. I want it for all kids. I'm in this thing for all kids. Cheer, you know, I know Ms. Harris was fighting for that deal, and we're all trying to make sure that thing gets taken care of. Baseball, I want to do what's right. I want to do what is right, period. And again, he told us this might be look a little different, but I lived in this building for 8 years. I know it works. And I've seen 3 more built after this one was built. And I've worked in it every day, the logistics and the functionality of it. And I know it will serve not only our kids, but it'll serve our coaches. And what Matt was talking about, those other schools we mirrored at, and he was right. They do. Every one of their athletic facilities at Eaton, Byron Nelson, they've all had to be redone. For nobody's fault that's in this room. That's not what I'm saying. But I've been there, and I want to. When you hired me, you wanted a first class, is what we talked about, a first class program, and to win football games. That's period. And I feel like this facility is first class, and it is elite. More importantly, though, it gives a home that will service 300 plus kids. 300 plus kids. And it will give us access to do more than we already currently do. And it will serve those people. And I'm just, again, humbled to have an opportunity. And it's going to take, and Dr. Holmesworth, I'm going to sell that freaking second school because it's the right thing to do. Okay? You know, everybody's, well, you got to split your talent, Tyler. It's a one-horse town. And I'm in love with Waxahachie, a one-horse town, don't get me wrong. But it's the right thing to do to sell that. It is the right thing to do to sell those elementaries. It's the right thing to do because you're going to work where you get your paycheck and you're going to work where you're planted, and that's the right thing to do. And I'm going to get out there. If this makes it, I'm going to get out there, and we're going to, every 18-year-old I've ever coached in Waxahachie, we're going to get registered 30 days before this thing. That's just my mentality of it, and we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And I hope, because I don't want to be the guy down the road. Coach Tolson had a chance, and he didn't get it done. I'm not going to be that weak person, okay? Mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. And I want this thing to be special. Special. And I know, and when people say, well, they don't care about athletics. No, y'all do. We do. I know we do, because I've been around you guys. I know you care about kids. That's a wrong perception of it. We just got to, you hired somebody that's been somewhere that I can bring and I can shed light to it and see how a building that will serve our kids. And I want this thing, we got one chance to do it right, I want this thing to be around for 30, 40 years. You can't build it twice. You only get one chance to build it and to do it right. Do it right, but that's it. Anything else for me?
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
I don't think an extra 14 million is too bad for everything that we're gonna get.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit turned around looking at the scale. Where is the indoor practice field on this? Is it, that's
on the
okay,
right,
I thought
yes,
it
ma'am.
was, but I wasn't sure.
The driveway runs, the driveway behind the back's kind of about 35 feet off the IAC. This building right now comes kind of right out to that sidewalk on the driveway.
Okay.
And Ms. Kriegel, if you go just from the top, you're going up toward the cafeteria.
Right.
You're going through that courtyard. This one.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Going back to our last
A bit clear.
workshop, this pretty much takes care of all of our kids leaving campus for extracurricular activities, with the exception of swimming and golf. We don't have a swimming pool, we don't have a golf course. Correct?
It minimizes travel.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mark is
I'm sorry?
Richards Park would be the only.
My only question is, y'all know I'm the one that kind of started this a while back. It's awful fast. The turnaround time to draw a price, the facility. Of course, I know there's already been some planning on what we can, I know Coach Collison's used that floor plan before, been around and some other things. I just want to know, I think we got to be transparent to the public. When you do something this quick, we may have to make some major changes there. I mean, you can look at your site. I mean, the Agri-Science Center is a prime example. The soil there was a huge monkey wrench, and the pricing on it. The siding on it ended up being different than masonry as a function of price. I think you gotta be real careful that you make sure that I know we can do it, but I don't know, I'm always a devil's advocate to make sure that we can do it right. And also, if we can do it cheaper, and it comes out cheaper, we need to make sure that we don't spend, let's just make a number, let's say you did it 15 instead of 20 or 12 instead of 20. We don't need to spend the money. We need to be frugal with our taxpayers' dollars, but also make sure that we take care of things. And that's gonna take some logistical work to make sure it can be done. For example, like I said, the siding on the Agri-Science Center saves $2 million, between 2 and 3 million. And it's every bit as durable as the roof. And it looks just as nice. So I think we gotta be open to those concepts, and we can't just go and make sure we do it, like Coach Tollison said, do it one time, do it right, in the most utilitarian, cost-effective manner.
Even in looking at this today, there's some square feet we can, I want to squeeze a little bit of square feet on this, and we will as we start, because that's the first place you save money is square foot that you don't build and have to maintain for the next 50 years is also saving you from here on out. So our job will be to get everything we need, but also interior hallways drive me crazy, because that's circulation
Wasted
feet that
space.
I'd like to, but athletics
I'm
has a
trying to
lot
pick
of
my
them.
words careful so I don't say stuff like that.
I understand. I'll just say, athletics has a lot of hallways because they're going from a lot of places, so it's usually circulation heavy. So we just need to be smart about how much we can marry things up to each other and eliminate some of that. But yeah, the goal is always, we do not want to spend every dollar that we have. We want to build what we need to build and get
And make sure
the
we're
best
putting it
value
in
you
the
can.
right, make sure we're putting it in the right place on the property too.
Yeah. The good news about this location as opposed to the other side of the IAC, that's where our primary power comes into the building over there, so we were not about to bite that apple. So on this side, I have one storm drain line. I have a 12-inch storm drain that has to be relocated, which in the grand scheme of
I
things
know exactly what it
is a lucky hit. So,
Approximately what percentage of that price tag is directly reflective of having to have a tornado shelter?
well, that's $1 million question that all three contractors I asked couldn't give me a good answer on. So the range I got from one, because I asked them to price it both ways, because right now I've actually priced about 25,000 feet of storm shelter, the rest is not, because that's about what we need. And the delta between the two is 7,440, so 1/6. So let's say 18% upcharge at this point. It's getting closer, honestly. It used to be a 50% delta. But in a space like this, to be honest, in an athletic area, you're probably doing block and brick anyway. And ICF, which is insulated concrete formwork now, where if you've seen these styrofoam-looking Lego blocks that are going up when people build schools, that's formwork that we pour concrete in. It's a solid concrete wall. Well, that functions as well as masonry, and it's more expensive than masonry, but if I do it in a classroom, going to ICF, it's a big difference. But if I'm going from a locker room to that, it's not as big. But it's still probably 18 to 20% easily is the premium on it. It's hard to say because people are no longer building non-storm in K-12, and it kind of gets in the aggregate cost now, so our data is not so great anymore. 5 years ago when we first started doing it, 50% was what we'd say. On an elementary, at least $1 million. On a high school, middle school, it got to be 3 to 5 million, something like that.
Anyone else?
Jonathan's gonna stick around, so he can answer questions if they come back up. Ryan, you wanna take us through the next couple there?
Yes, sir. So the recommendation for bond proposals from administration would be, A, to be the educational facilities. You will notice a minor change from the last one, Ms. Timmerman, not to throw it in there as a snuck-in thing, but I would really recommend land for future sites. So that is currently listed as a recommendation for Proposition A with a $5 million guesstimate. We don't necessarily have land identified at this point, but it would be a carrying authorization from the public for up to 10 years to identify and secure land. That would be something that we would not issue bonds for until we had land identified and under contract and ready to close. Proposition B is Comprehensive High School number 2. Proposition C, again, the facility upgrades, and then Proposition D, as Mr. McCutcheon asked earlier, it would have to be its own separate proposition based off the nature of the work being proposed. And right now, our best guesstimate is approximately $20 million. If you were to accept these 4 recommendations as presented, the total cost of all propositions would be $595 million. $595,045,987, which is approximately a $19 million increase over the recommendation from the LRPC. Their total, I believe, was $576 million.
That's great.
What's your magic figure, what that does to the average taxpayer?
To be really honest with you, I haven't even looked at it at this point because this is so fresh after turning around, within the last 36 hours to get this. Honestly, I haven't looked at it. I can't imagine it's a significant increase in that rate, but I don't know to answer your question.
Before we added the 20-something million, it was 3 cents, which, I don't have my notes.
It was-
Judd knows it, he's got it. figured.
$5.61 a month on the average house, and that was for the entire 576 million. Adding 20 million to it, rough guesstimate, I'm gonna assume that 5 will increase to maybe $7 a month.
So instead of it being 3 cents, it'll probably be
It might be, yeah, it might be 3 cents and some fractions of a penny hanging out there. We may be looking at, so right now it's 0.3839, it may be 0.415. So 3 and fractions of another penny to make that happen, but I don't know, I haven't done the math, I'm sorry.
I assume you'll have the math before Monday.
I will work my best, yes ma'am, to try to get that number.
I think that's $7 is a minimum sacrifice a month to get all this put in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like what I see up there.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public want to say anything?
We're gonna need your help.
You got it?
You got it.
We're on the back.
We got a lot of football moms.
Okay.
Well, I was fine with it as long as it was gonna be a separate proposition, you know, and now that finding out how much it is, it's absolutely necessary, so.
We don't have anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, plead for, we'll have to work it, because I do know that I did some counting on the November props across the state. There were, the ones that came in an email that we got, I don't know if that was all the bond elections, but out of 32 athletic props, only 6 of them passed, so we'll have to get out there and pound the pavement. So, we can do it.
Absolutely.
We can do it.
One of the things that we've shared with our staff in each of those meetings, I'm doing those monthly, daily presentations to our staff. In the previous bond, 2 years ago, that was not successful, it was roughly 6,400 votes cast. You had 43% for and 57% against. It is a 7% differential between your yeses and your nos. That 7% equates to about 450 votes out of 6,400 that were cast. A further piece of data, which encourages me, a further piece of data was, of our staff who could vote, Jenny reported to me that 75% were eligible to vote. Out of our 1,600 staff, 75% were eligible to vote. Of the 75% of our staff who could vote, 30% voted in the last bond. And so, we have spent a tremendous amount of effort and time pouring into our staff. And I do believe that they will be well educated on what's in it. They know it, because we've been putting that effort and that time into it. And I've used coaches, we all got to hold the rope. And he has expressed that to assistant coaches, and we'll continue to spread that. But that's all encouraging to me, because we can move it. So.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Motion McCutcheon, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
Hey,
nay.
thank y'all for coming and speaking.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for listening.